Part 1. The World. The world in Guild Wars 2 is known as Tyria. This is the place you'll be spending most of your time adventuring on. It's a fantasy world of swords and magic, but with more advanced steampunk technology also in use like airships and guns. Tyria is a spherical planet, has a sun and moon, and isn't the only known world to exist in the universe. Indeed, it's said that humanity was brought to Tyria from another world over 1,000 years ago, making them aliens, but now, so much time has passed, very few remember this truth. While some characters have found ways to visit the other worlds using magic, we, the players, never have, so any planet other than Tyria remains largely a mystery. Tyria has days, nights, seasons, and years much like Earth does. It has oceans, islands, mountains, jungles, deserts, and most every other environment you might come to expect. It's split into 3 different known continents, with each one being introduced every time a new Guild Wars 1 story campaign was released. There are probably more continents than this, but since the developers stopped releasing new campaigns and started working on Guild Wars 2 instead, we've never actually seen them. Tyria is a large world, but we've only seen a comparatively small slice of it. Confusingly, the first continent we ever got to see has the exact same name as the planet, Tyria. There's a Tyria the world, and then there's Tyria the continent. Maybe a little bit confusing at first, but it's usually easy enough to understand what people mean when they use the name. Tyria, the continent, is the largest continent in the game. It's home to many lands, races, and environments, and it's also the place where the story, before expansions are released, takes place in Guild Wars 2. To the south of Tyria is a continent called Elona. It's known by the men who live there as the Land of the Golden Sun, a hot, tropical place of African influence. It's split into 3 human nations, Istan, Vabi, and Korna, which span what inhabitable land they can. But there's one place in all of Elona where humanity cannot live, the Desolation. This sulphurous wasteland acts as a barrier between Elona and Tyria to the north, killing those who attempt to pass through it. In recent years, an undead lich has conquered all of Elona, causing contact with the people of this continent to become largely cut off. Even further south of Elona, far across the unending ocean, is another land. This is Cantha, the Dragon Empire. Cantha has a distinct Chinese or East Asian resemblance and can be split into 4 main regions. We've got Xingye Island, Kaineng City, the Echovald Forest, and the Jade Sea. Humanity has flourished here, with their cities spanning most of the northern regions, but owing to its vast remoteness and its recent xenophobic practices, contact between those living in Tyria and those in Cantha is now almost non-existent. Neither Cantha nor Elona are actually accessible at the launch of Guild Wars 2, and you won't even see them on the world map. But it's important to remember that they're there. In-game, you'll actually find people who used to live in or are descended from those continents, and they'll talk to you about news of their homelands. So now, hopefully, you know where they're referring to. Tyria is the huge continent you will see on the map. This is the home of the 5 playable races, as well as many lesser races. It's where the main storyline takes place, and much of it will be available for exploration. Each playable race has their own territory, along with a large capital city of their own. The humans live in Crater. Crater is a lush land of green hills, fields, forests, streams and swamps. Humans have been killed and pushed back on all fronts in Tyria, so Crater stands as the last place of refuge for the race. They once called the coastal city Lion's Arch their capital, but this was destroyed by tidal waves years ago and rebuilt as a free state by pirates. So a new capital was named, Divinity's Reach, a massive city to the north where all humans, regardless of heritage, are welcome. Humans used to live in Ascalon too, far east over the Shiver Peak Mountains, but this is now home to the Char, a playable race that were at war with humanity for hundreds of years, a war which they won. The Char are very industrial and pollute areas of what is otherwise a beautiful land, more scenic even than Crater. The region's littered with humanity's ruins, in particular a massive wall that stretches many miles east to west. Built over hundreds of years, the Great Northern Wall was once used to keep the Char out of Ascalon, but now lies in shambles across the landscape. The Char built their greatest city, the mechanical Black Citadel, directly on top of the fallen human capital of Rin, an example to all of their conquest over men. The Shiver Peaks are a long mountain range that separate Kryta and Ascalon. They're home to a third playable race, the Norn, who fled from their home further north many years ago. The Shiver Peaks are well known for their cold, high summits, fields of snow and sheer rock faces. While the Norn are mostly nomadic hunters and don't typically create large towns or cities for themselves, there is an exception. Holbrack is a vast place built by the Norn, for the Norn, a place for all to return to and share stories about their greatness. The Tarnished Coast, a long way away, houses the last two playable races. It's a lush jungle region filled with deadly plants, large insects and vast, tall trees that spread their roots all around. 25 years ago, the Sylvari were born from an enormous flowering tree to the east of the Tarnished Coast, the Pale Tree. Many Sylvari now travel the world, but they know this place as home, naming it the Grove. To the west are the Asura, who have built a floating pyramid among the jungle trees called Ratasum. Here, the Asura have spent much time creating magical buildings and golems, with little thought towards how they've affected the jungle around them. So that's the 5 playable races, but aside from these guys and their territories, there are also many more areas in Tyria to be explored, though perhaps not all of them will be there at the launch of the game. North of the Tarnished Coast is the Maguma Wastes, a region once as thick with jungle as the Tarnished Coast itself, but now dried up and transformed to a land of red cliffs, cracked earth and dust. North of Kryta lie the Verdant Forests and the Isles of Janthir, which could be potential homelands for the Messart, a race of evil spellcasters from Guild Wars 1 that had a big role in the original game. Then there's the Crystal Desert, once barren but now finding new life since the river Elon began to flow over its dunes. There's the Deljamore Front, a remote part of the Shiver Peaks once inhabited by the now extinct dwarves, and the Fire Island Chain, a string of active volcanic islands where the first game ended. Lastly, we've got the Blood Legion homelands, where the Char lived before retaking Ascalon when they were at war, and the far Shiver Peaks, original homeland of the Norn, before they were forced to flee south. But flee from what? Tyria has recently been thrown into turmoil because 5 great dragons have awoken, devastating the landscape and killing, or corrupting, everything they can. These elder dragons have had a significant impact on the geography of the continent. The Norn lived in the far Shiver Peaks until Jormag, the Elder Dragon of Ice, awoke and began to rampage across the icy climes. So significant was the damage he caused that entire inland seas formed where mountaintops once stood, and the Norn were forced south to safety. Another example of the dragon's powers can be seen in eastern Ascalon. A great scar of crystal cuts into the land from north to south. The Brand. It was created when an elder dragon woke up and flew south. As it travelled, everything beneath its flight path was instantly transformed to crystal, leaving behind a long, dark scar. Maybe the greatest change, though, was in the lands of Or, which had long ago been sunk to the ocean bed. Zaitan, the elder dragon of the undead, raised the entire nation back above the surface, claiming the once sunken cities and lands as his own territory. So much earth and water was displaced from this violent movement that a series of tidal waves shred through the coastal areas of Kryta and the Tarnished Coast, transforming the landscape even more. The Racers of Tyria have, despite the odds, survived these numerous disasters, and it's your job, when you get in game, to, starting with Zaitan, stop the Elder Dragons from destroying anything else. So that's what we know about Tyria. Next video we'll rewind 250 years to the world before the dragons woke up and changed so much, and we'll tell the story of Guild Wars 1. Now you know where it was set, it's time to find out exactly what happened. Thanks for watching.